The air in our Brooklyn brownstone hummed with the brittle melody of forced cheer. My carefully curated Thanksgiving table that reclaimed oak adorned with autumnal centerpieces I designed myself groaned under the weight of heirloom china and professional-grade cuisine. The guests were a curated mix. The Hansons, potential clients for a massive Tribeca loft renovation. Ben's younger brother, Alex, with his overly earnest wife. Melissa, and a few acquaintances who filled seats and conversation gaps. I was performing. Sloan Mitchell, founder of Mitchell Design Collective, hostess extraordinaire, woman who has it all. The performance was almost second nature now. The restoration on those original moldings was a nightmare, I said, smiling at Charles Hanson as I passed the cranberry orange relish. But seeing them now, under this light, worth every battle with the contractors. Your eye is incredible, Sloan. Eleanor Hanson gushed, her gaze sweeping the open concept living area that flowed into the dining space. This whole place is a testament to it. From the head of the table, Ben raised his wine glass. She's got an eye for a lot of things, he said, his voice already carrying the loose, rounded edges of too much Pinot Noir, just not always for what's right in front of her. He chuckled, as if it were a joke. It wasn't. A flicker of tension crossed Alex's face. Melissa busied herself with her napkin. I kept my smile nailed in place. Well, what's right in front of me is a perfectly dry turkey. Thanks to you, Ben, I said, my tone light, diplomatic, a peace offering, a deflection. I'd asked him to handle the turkey, a single, manageable task for the man who was, nominally, the stay-at-home parent. His contribution to our ecosystem, even a broken clock, is right twice a day. He muttered, just loud enough for me to hear, and drained his glass. The meal lumbered on. Conversation splintered into smaller groups. I focused on the Hansons, discussing lead times for custom cabinetry, the merits of various quartzite slabs. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ben refill his glass. Again, he was leaning back, holding court with Alex about the glory days of college basketball, his voice growing progressively louder. My 3-year-old daughter, Chloe, was a wisp of rose gold curls and curiosity, having escaped her kiddie table to orbit the adults. She was fascinated by the low, crackling fire in the gas fireplace and the collection of delicate, blown-glass pumpkins and gourds arranged on the hearth. Chloe, sweetheart, leave those alone, I called softly, mid-sentence about underfloor heating. They're not for playing, but they're shiny, Mommy. I know, baby. Later, I turned back to Eleanor. The radiant heat is a game changer, especially with these old floors. I've got it. Ben's voice cut across the table, thick and overly deliberate. He pushed his chair back, a little unsteady. Come here, princess. Daddy'll show you. He lurched over to the hearth and scooped Chloe up, plopping her down farther from the decorations, but squarely in the path of his lecturing finger. See these? Pretty, but breakable, like your mom's good mood. He snorted. You don't touch. Understand? Sit here and look. No touching. Chloe's lower lip trembled at his tone. I felt a spike of irritation. Ben, it's fine. She understands. Just redirect her. He shot me a look, cold and sharp beneath the alcoholic glaze. I'm redirecting. You handle your clients. I'll handle the discipline. That's the division of labor, right? The jab was palpable. You earn the money. I do the grunt work. The unimportant stuff. I took a slow breath. Not here. Not now. Charles, you were saying about the structural engineer's report? The next 20 minutes were an exercise in compartmentalization. I split my focus between sealing the deal with the Hansons and monitoring the simmering situation by the fireplace. Ben had returned to the table, leaving Chloe sitting obediently but forlornly on the rug. He poured more wine, his participation in conversations becoming more sporadic, his comments more barbed. My bladder, tightened by stress and iced tea, finally demanded attention. I excused myself. As I passed the hearth, I knelt quickly, brushing a curl from Chloe's forehead. Her big blue eyes were solemn. You okay, Bunny? She nodded. Daddy said be a statue. You don't have to be a statue. Just look with your eyes, not your hands. Okay, I'll be right back. I kissed her cheek. I love you. Love you, Mommy. I headed for the powder room, the sounds of the party fading. For 60 seconds, I leaned against the sink, closing my eyes, breathing in the quiet scent of my own expensive hand soap. I just needed to get through the dessert course. Then the guests would leave, the performance would end, and I could retreat into the familiar, exhausted silence of my marriage. The scream tore through the house. It wasn't a cry of frustration or a whine. It was a raw, sharp shriek of pure terror and pain. My blood turned to ice water. I wrenched the door open and ran. The scene in the living room was a frozen tableau of horror. Chloe was on the floor near the stone hearth, her body curled, one small hand pressed to the side of her face. The sound of her panicked, gasping sobs filled the sudden silence. A few feet away, Ben stood, swaying slightly, a nearly empty wine glass dangling from his fingers. His face was a mask of cold, detached disapproval. Everyone else was statues. The Hansons stared at their plates. Melissa had her hand over her mouth. Alex looked frozen in his chair, conflicted. I was across the room in a heartbeat, skidding to my knees on the hardwood, gathering Chloe into my arms. Her little body was rigid with shock, then melted into violent tremors against my chest. Mommy, Mommy, shoo, I'm here, baby, I'm here. Gently, I pried her hand away from her cheek. A hot, red flush was already spreading across her porcelain skin, swelling ominously around her eye. A superficial scrape, but the impact was clear. Rage, white hot and absolute, obliterated every other thought. I looked up at Ben. My voice, when it came, was dangerously low. What happened? He took a slow sip of wine, meeting my gaze with a challenge. She went for the decorations. After I explicitly told her not to, she didn't listen. He shrugged, a careless, brutal motion, slipped on the rug in her rush to disobey. Karma's a quicker teacher than I am. You were supposed to be watching her. I was watching. He sneered. I watched her decide to ignore me. A child needs to learn consequences. Sloane, you can't just buy her out of every scrape. Some lessons have to sting. His eyes, glassy and contemptuous, swept over Chloe's heaving shoulders. Unruly children need discipline, or they grow up to be. He let the sentence hang, his meaning clear. Like you, willful, disobedient, in charge. The implicit threat to my daughter, the sheer venom in his words in front of an audience, snapped the last fraying thread of my control. The careful architecture of my reasons for staying at the problematic clause in Dad's will, the prenup intricacies, the public image of Mitchell family values that buoyed my brand that crumbled to dust. In that instant, there was only Chloe's terrified breath against my neck and the man who had caused it. I stood up, holding Chloe close. Her crying had subsided to hiccuping whimpers. I felt a terrifying calm settle over me. I looked at each of the guests, my gaze stripping them of their pretended invisibility. They flinched under it. Then I turned back to Ben. Did you touch her? He barked a laugh, derisive and loud. Touch her? I didn't need to. The little fool did it to herself. The fright was punishment enough. Maybe now she'll learn to mind. That was it. The line, not just crossed, but vaporized. Without another look at him, I walked to the sideboard where my phone lay. I shifted Chloe's weight to one hip. She buried her face in my shoulder. The room was so quiet I could hear the hiss of the gas fire. I unlocked the phone, scrolled to a contact labeled Naomi Legal, and tapped the call button. It rang twice. Naomi Resnick. Her crisp, no-nonsense voice was an anchor. Naomi, it's Sloane. Happy Thanksgiving. My tone was flat, devoid of all emotion. A slight pause on the other end. She heard it. Sloane, what's wrong? I need you to initiate 2 actions. Immediately. I kept my eyes fixed on Ben, who was now watching me with a mix of confusion and dawning unease. First, I need an emergency motion filed for sole temporary custody of Chloe and a temporary order of protection barring Ben Carter from coming within 500 yards of her or our home. Grounds are child endangerment and threatening behavior. Ben's jaw went slack. The glass in his hand dipped, sloshing wine onto the rug. Second, I continued, as if listing items for a grocery pickup. I want the paperwork started to have him formally evicted from the brownstone. Tonight, he can collect his personal effects under police supervision at a later date. Naomi didn't hesitate. Witnesses, 8, including the child's paternal uncle and a potential 6-figure client. I gave her the address. He is currently intoxicated and made a verbal statement endorsing the child's injury as discipline. I have it on speaker. A sharp intake of breath from Alex. Melissa made a small, choked sound. Understood, Naomi said, her keyboard clacking already audible. I'm on it. Police and a process server will be there within the hour. Do not engage with him further. Record if you can. Is Chloe safe with you right now? She is now. Good. Sit tight. I'll handle the court. Call me if the situation escalates before the authorities arrive. Thank you, Naomi. I ended the call and placed the phone back on the sideboard. The silence in the room was profound, broken only by the faint, tinny sound of a football game from the TV in the den. Every eye was on Ben. The color had drained from his face, leaving his features slack and waxy. The drunken arrogance had evaporated, replaced by a raw, stupid panic. He looked like a man who'd been walking a familiar, rotten plank over a chasm and had just heard it crack. You're bluffing, he stammered, the words slurring. You can't, over one little accident, in front of everyone. Sloan, be reasonable, reasonable. I repeated, the word tasting like ash. You called my daughter a fool and said her pain was a fitting lesson. In my home, on a holiday, there is nothing reasonable left to say to you. Ben, he took a step forward, his hand outstretched in a pleading gesture that felt obscene. She's my daughter too. I love her. I was just the wine. You were ignoring us all night with your clients. The old accusation, the well-worn groove of his resentment, surfaced even in his panic. Stop. The word cut like a whip. Do not speak to me. Do not look at my daughter. Your things will be packed and left on the curb. Your access to her will be determined by a judge, supervised by a professional. You are done here. The finality in my voice broke through his last shred of denial. The reality of the lawyer's call, the imminent police, the eviction, the fact that I was not screaming, not crying, but acting with a terrifying, procedural coldness that hit him. His bravado shattered. Sloan, please, he whispered, his voice cracking. Please, don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. Chloe, baby. Daddy's sorry. He took another step toward us. I took a deliberate step back, holding Chloe tighter. Don't come near us. The movement, the absolute rejection in it, seemed to physically wound him. He stumbled back as if pushed, his eyes wide with a terror that was entirely sober. He looked around the table, searching for an ally, but found only averted gazes and expressions of profound discomfort. Even his brother, Alex, looked down at his hands. Shamefaced, I turned my attention to our guests. The performance was over. A new, harder one had begun. I apologize that our family situation has intruded on your evening, I said, my voice carrying clearly in the dead space. Dessert and coffee will obviously not be served. I think it's best if everyone leaves now. There were no protests, just a clumsy, hurried scraping of chairs, a muffled chorus of course. And take care. Sloan. Coats were retrieved from the closet with awkward speed. The Hansons gave me wide-eyed, solemn nods before fleeing out the door. Melissa couldn't meet my eyes. Alex paused by the door, looking from his broken, staring brother to me. Sloan. He began. Not now. Alex, I said, my tone leaving no room. Good night. He left, pulling the heavy front door shut behind him with a soft, definitive click. And then it was just the three of us, the ruins of the feast, the flickering fire, the swelling silence. Chloe had gone still and heavy in my arms, exhausted by tears and shock. Ben stood by the table, a monument to crumbling ego, his mouth working soundlessly. I walked past him, toward the stairs that led to the bedrooms. I didn't run. I walked with purpose, each step a hammer blow on the coffin of the life we'd had. You'll ruin everything, he croaked from behind me. A last, desperate lunge. The company, your father's, will, the board, your perfect little image. I paused on the bottom step, but didn't turn around. I spoke to the wall, my voice quiet and absolutely clear. You should have thought of that before you drew a line between me and my child. There is no everything without her. Now, get out of my sight. The police will be here soon to help you remember the way to the door. I climbed the stairs, leaving him alone in the wreckage of the shattered feast. The only sound was the ragged, uneven sound of his breathing, and the soft, trusting sigh of my daughter as she finally fell asleep against my heart. The police arrived with a brisk, impersonal efficiency that was both a relief and a fresh humiliation. 2 uniformed officers, a man and a woman, their faces carefully neutral as they took in the scene. The elegant, ravaged dining room, the trembling man in rumpled cashmere, and me, still holding my sleeping daughter on the staircase like a shield. I gave my statement, flat and precise. Ben, slurring and frantic, tried to explain it as an accident, a misunderstanding, a father's rightful discipline. The female officer, Officer Gutierrez, glanced at the faint, livid mark on Chloe's cheek, then at the half-empty wine bottle near Ben's place. She asked the guests, but they had all, predictably, demurred, citing they didn't see the actual fall. Cowards, but their lack of condemnation for Ben was also, technically, a lack of condemnation for me, a small, bitter mercy, based on the statement and the child's visible injury. We can advise Mr. Carter to vacate the premises for the night to prevent further disturbance, Officer Gutierrez said, her tone leaving no room for argument. It's a civil standby. We'll wait while he packs a bag. A formal temporary order of protection will need to be issued by the court. But until then, sir, it's strongly in your interest to find other accommodations. Ben looked at me, his eyes pleading, swimming in a stew of fear and hangover. Sloan, don't do this. Where will I go? A hotel, I said, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. You have the black Amex. Use it. The card was on my account. I'd cancel it tomorrow. The officer escorted him upstairs. I heard drawers opening and closing, the sound of a zipper pulled with angry force. Chloe stirred in my arms. I took her to the living room, away from the dining room's wreckage, and sat in the large armchair by the dead fire, rocking her gently. The male officer stood by the front door, a silent, imposing presence. 10 minutes later, Ben came down, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He'd changed into jeans and a sweatshirt. He looked younger, diminished. He stopped in the foyer, his gaze finding us in the dim room. I'll call you tomorrow, he said, the attempt at normalcy grotesque. You'll call my lawyer. I corrected, not looking at him. All communication goes through Naomi Resnick moving forward. Her card is on the hall table. Take one. A muscle in his jaw twitched. The officer touched his elbow. Sir, this way. The door closed behind them. The silence that descended was absolute and heavy. I sat there for a long time, listening to Chloe's soft, even breaths, feeling the weight of the house, my house, bought with the first massive commission after I'd taken over Mitchell Design, settle around me. The performance was over. The audience was gone. There was only the aftermath. Sometime after midnight, I carried Chloe to her room, a serene oasis of soft grays and blush pinks. I changed her into pajamas, cleaned her cheek with a gentle antiseptic wipe, and tucked her in. She didn't wake fully, just murmured and curled around her favorite stuffed rabbit. I sat on the edge of her bed, watching the moonlight trace the curve of her cheek. The shadow of the swelling. The rage had cooled into a hard, diamond-sharp resolve. My phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. Papers filed. Hearing for top and temp custody set for Friday. 9 a.m. Judge Alvarez. Good judge. Get some sleep. War room at 8 a.m. My office. Bring all financials you can find. Sleep was impossible. I cleaned. Not the cathartic, furious cleaning of movies, but a methodical, mind-numbing eradication of the evening. I dumped the ruined food, loaded the dishwasher, wiped down surfaces. I boxed the remaining crystal wine glasses, a wedding gift from Ben's parents, and put them in the basement. Each action was a stitch pulled from the fabric of a life I was determined to unravel completely. By 7 a.m., I was showered, dressed in a tailored cream sheath dress and blazered armor, and had consumed a pot of black coffee. Chloe, to my relief, seemed herself. If quieter, the swelling had gone down slightly, leaving a faint yellowing mark. Mommy, where's Daddy? She asked over her oatmeal. Daddy had to go away for a little while, I said, keeping my voice steady and calm. He said some not nice things last night, and he hurt your feelings. We need some time to feel safe and happy again in our house. She pondered this, a small frown between her brows. He was loud. Yes, he was. And that was scary. But you know what? It's just you and me today. We're going to see Aunt Naomi, and then maybe get ice cream after. Bribery. A parenting fail. I didn't care. Naomi's office in a sleek midtown tower was a study in calm modernity. She greeted me with a brisk hug, her keen eyes taking in my polished exterior. You look like hell warmed over, she said bluntly, handing me a larger coffee. Chloe, with my assistant, Marcy, at the building's playroom. She's okay. Confused. She's 3. Confused is her default setting. Naomi gestured me into her pristine conference room. Okay, talk. From the beginning. And not the bends and ass when he drinks beginning. The real beginning. So I talked. For 2 hours. I laid it all out. The slow erosion. How Ben's initial support after my father's death had curdled into resentment as my business grew. His failed attempts at a career, a half-baked podcast about athletic mindset. A foray into life coaching that consisted of buying expensive gear and playing golf with other bored husbands. How he'd suggested, with wounded pride, that he become a stay-at-home dad to support my career, a move that had effectively made him a financially dependent hobbyist. He uses the money. Naomi, I said, my fingers tight around the coffee cup, the joint account, the credit cards. He calls it managing household expenses, but it's personal training sessions, boutique gym memberships, networking, lunches that are just him getting drunk with his old teammates. And if I question it, I trailed off. If you question it, Naomi prompted, her pen poised over a legal pad. He says I'm emasculating him, that I don't respect his contribution to our family, that if I trusted him, I wouldn't monitor every penny. He throws the perfect family thing in my face, asks how it would look for Mitchell Design's shining star to have a messy, public divorce. He knows about the clause in Dad's will. Naomi's lips thinned. The moral turpitude clause. An antique, but still valid. My father, a man of his generation, had inserted a provision in the will governing the 30% of company shares held in trust for me, in the event of my divorce. If the divorce was deemed to be primarily due to my moral failing or instability causing the breakdown of the marriage, the trust could freeze the voting rights of those shares for 5 years, placing control in the hands of the board, a board where my cousin, Derek, sat with a hungry glint in his eye. It was meant to protect the company from a gold-digging spouse. The irony was a live wire in my gut. Ben wasn't a gold digger. He was a leech who'd convinced me, and maybe himself. He was something else. And the prenup? Naomi asked. Solid. He gets a graduated settlement based on years of marriage. Kept. But it assumes an amicable split. If I'm found at fault. I shook my head. He's hinted. He says things like, Your high-powered lawyer friends can't protect you from looking like the heartless bitch who abandoned her family for a spreadsheet. He knows the narrative: successful woman, neglectful wife, driven husband to drink. He's been laying the groundwork for years, in little ways, making sure people see him as the involved dad at school events, posting those saccharine family photos online, playing the martyr when I have to work late. Naomi leaned back. Okay, so we're not just dealing with a drunk asshole who scared his kid. We're dealing with a calculated, resentful parasite who's been preparing his own exit strategy, funded by you, and planning to take a big chunk of your life with him when he goes. The Thanksgiving show was just him finally dropping the act in the wrong company. Hearing it stated so baldly was like a splash of cold water. Yes, the good news, she said, ticking points off on her fingers, is that last night gave us a pivot, a clear, documented incident involving Chloe. It moves this from a potentially murky, she works too much divorce to a clear-cut issue of child safety. Judges hate that, especially with witnesses, even passive ones. The temporary orders are likely to go our way. It gives us breathing room. And the bad news? The bad news is that a temporary order isn't a final custody ruling. To get him out for good, limit his access, and protect your assets from a raiding party. We need more. We need to prove a pattern of behavior that makes him an unfit custodial parent and a dissipator of marital assets. The drunken rant is a start, but it's one night. We need financial forensics. We need to know where your money is really going. And, she leveled her gaze at me, we need to know if there's someone else. The air left my lungs. I'd suspected. The late nights at the gym. The new, secretive passcode on his phone. The faint, unfamiliar floral scent on his clothes sometimes. But I'd buried it. Another problem on a teetering pile. Admitting it to Naomi made it real. I think so, I whispered. Then we find her. Or him. Whoever it is. They're a sinkhole for your money and proof of his bad character. It also shatters his devoted father and wronged husband narrative into a million pieces. She slid a card across the table. Mick Spinelli. Private investigator. Discreet. Expensive. And very good. He's expecting your call. Give him access to everything. Credit card statements. Bank accounts. Phone records if you can get them. Let him follow the money. I picked up the card. And in the meantime, you play the part. The concerned, shocked, but determined mother. You focus on Chloe. You document every interaction with Ben. Texts, emails, voicemails. You do not speak to him on the phone without recording it. Check your state's consent laws. But in New York, one-party consent is fine. You change the locks today. You alert Chloe's preschool that Ben is not authorized for pickup without a court order in your hand. You live your life. And you let me handle the law. I nodded. The plan solidifying. A lifeline in the chaos. What about the will? The company? One fire at a time. Sloan. We secure Chloe. We expose Ben. We dismantle his narrative. A man who bleeds his family's finances dry to fund an affair and then intimidates his toddler isn't a sympathetic figure. No matter how many sad dad Instagram posts he makes. The court of public opinion. And the actual court will see that your dad's will is about moral turpitude. We're going to make sure all of it sticks to Ben like glue. My phone vibrated on the table. Ben's name flashed on the screen. A text. I showed it to Naomi. Sloan, please, we need to talk. I'm sick about last night. I love Chloe more than anything. You're throwing away our family over one mistake. Call me. Naomi nodded. Record it. Be calm. Be brief. Give him nothing. I took a deep breath, activated the voice memo app, and hit call. It rang once before he picked up. Sloan? God, Sloan. Thank you for calling. His voice was thick, ragged. Listen, last night, I don't know what came over me. The stress, the wine. I would never hurt her. You have to know that. She's my whole world. I closed my eyes. The mark on her face says otherwise. Ben. A beat of silence. It was an accident. She fell. I was trying to teach her to listen. By letting her get hurt, I kept my voice even. A lawyerly monotone. Your lesson was learned. So is mine. Do not come to the house. Do not try to contact Chloe directly. All communication goes through Naomi Resnick. Her number was on the table. This is insane. The pleading vanished, replaced by the familiar, building whine of grievance. You're going to burn everything down. Over what? You're being hysterical. What about my side of the story? What about what you've put me through? What have I put you through, Ben? I asked, genuinely curious in a detached, clinical way. The constant work, the trips, making me feel like a goddamn servant in my own home. What was I supposed to do? Just sit there and take it while you and that client guy were laughing it up all night? There it was, the core of it, not Chloe's safety, his wounded pride. I let the silence stretch, letting his heavy breathing fill the line. My lawyer's information is on the hall table. Ben, use it. Sloan, wait. I ended the call, looked at Naomi. The recording had captured it all. The shallow apology, the swift deflection, the blame shifting, the narcissistic injury. Naomi gave a small, grim smile. Good. That's a start. He's scared. Scared people are stupid. They talk. They make mistakes. Let him. She stood up. Now, go get your daughter. Get ice cream. Change the locks. Live your life. The war starts now. But the first battle is making him think you've already won. I left her office, the card for the private investigator a hard rectangle in my palm. The morning sun was bright, harsh. I walked to the playroom, where Chloe was building a wobbly tower of blocks with Marcy. She saw me and her face lit up, the shadow of last night momentarily gone. Mommy, look, I see. Baby, it's beautiful. I gathered her up, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. The diamond-hard resolve in my chest softened, just for a moment, into a fierce, encompassing love. This tiny, trusting human, my only real thing. Ben was right about one thing last night. I was drawing a line, but the line wasn't between him and me. It was around Chloe and me, and I would defend that line with everything I had. No more performance, no more fear, just the cold, clear work of survival. The click of the new deadbolt sliding home was the most satisfying sound I'd heard in years. The locksmith, a no-nonsense older man named Sal, gave me a sympathetic nod as he packed his tools. You stay safe, ma'am, he'd said, his Brooklyn accent thick. It was a small act of solidarity that felt immense. With Chloe napping, fortified by double-scoop chocolate chip, I poured another coffee and faced the true battlefield. My home office. I'd spent years building Mitchell Design Collective from this very room, but now I was dismantling another enterprise, the financial black hole that was my marriage. I started with the obvious, the joint checking and savings accounts. I logged in, my fingers flying over the keyboard. For years, I'd given Ben a wide berth here, a misguided gesture of trust and a desire to avoid conflict. You handle the household. I'll handle the business. I'd said, stupid. The transactions scrolled, a numbing litany of daily life. But patterns, like poison ivy, began to itch beneath the surface. Weekly charges of $150 to elevate yoga wellness in Soho. Ben hated yoga. He called it stretching for people who can't handle real exercise. I clicked back. The charges went back 18 months. Then there was the Amazon account. Not just household items, but expensive, random purchases, a high-end juicer, used once, noise-canceling headphones, designer sneakers in sizes that weren't his, gifts? For whom? My heart hammered against my ribs as I pulled up the credit card statements. The black Amex was the worst. Charges at the Standard Hotel's bar, dinners at Carbone, Le Cuckoo, places we hadn't been to together in years. A recurring monthly charge of $3.850 to Chelsea Lux Living LLC. What the hell was that? I opened a new tab and Googled it. A property management company. I navigated to their listings. There it was. A furnished one-bedroom apartment in a new glass tower on West 25th. Monthly rent. $3.850. The listing photos showed a sleek, Impersonal space with a view of the High Line. Not a coaching studio. A love nest. I felt a wave of nausea, so intense I had to put my head between my knees. The betrayal wasn't a surprise, but seeing it quantified, itemized, and billed to my account was a physical blow. He wasn't just cheating. He was funding his double life with the proceeds of the life he pretended to despise. I took a photo of the screen with my phone and texted it to Naomi, along with the yoga charges and the luxury dinner receipts. Found the leak. It's an ocean. Her reply was instantaneous. Call Mick. Now. And forward all this to your forensic accountant. I'll email you his contact. I didn't hesitate. I dialed the number on the card Naomi had given me. Spinelli. The voice was gravelly, devoid of pleasantries. Mr. Spinelli. My name is Sloane Mitchell. Naomi Resnick referred me. A shift in tone. Marginally more engaged. Ms. Mitchell. Naomi said you might call. What do you need? I need you to find out where my husband's money, why money, is really going. I have credit card statements, bank records. There's an apartment, yoga charges, expensive dinners. I need to know who he's with, what he's doing, and if there are any other financial diversions. Understood. Standard retainer is $5,000. I'll email you the agreement. You send me what you have. I'll start with the apartment and the yoga studio. Discreet is the default. You'll get weekly updates. More if something breaks. He paused. Emotional preparation. Ms. Mitchell. I find what I find. It's usually not pretty. I'm past pretty. Mr. Spinelli. I need facts. Good. I'll be in touch. I hung up and immediately compiled a digital dossier, sending it to Spinelli and to David Chin, the forensic accountant Naomi used. The act felt cathartic. I was no longer a victim of vague suspicions. I was a CEO initiating an audit on a rogue division. My phone rang. Ben's name again. This time, I answered on speaker, the recorder app glowing. Sloane. His voice was calmer, more measured. The panicked edge sanded down. Lawyer speak. Maybe. We need to talk about this like adults. This legal warfare is going to hurt Chloe most of all. The only thing that hurt Chloe was your behavior. Ben. The legal proceedings are a consequence. He ignored that. I got the papers from your lawyer. An order of protection? Seriously? You're trying to paint me as some kind of monster. It was one night. Sloane. One bad night. People make mistakes. Are you really going to destroy our family over it? The mistake involved our 3-year-old daughter ending up injured while you were intoxicated and verbally abusive. So yes, I'm taking it seriously. The court will decide the parameters. A frustrated sigh hissed through the speaker. You're so cold. You always have been. This is just another problem for you to manage. Isn't it? Another spreadsheet. I'm a line item. The old jab. Designed to provoke. I didn't bite. How we proceed is up to you. Ben, cooperate with the process through your counsel. My counsel. He scoffed. You know I can't afford some high-priced shark. You've got me by the balls financially. Is that the plan? Bankrupt me so I can't fight for my daughter? Your financial situation is a product of your choices. The court will consider your earning potential. I kept my voice neutral, giving him rope. You listed your occupation as household manager on the last joint tax return. That was your choice. Choice? He spat, the calm facade cracking. What choice did I have? You were never here. Someone had to raise our child. And how is Elevate Yoga Wellness part of raising our child? Ben, I asked, my tone slicing through his performance. Or the monthly $3,850 to Chelsea Lux Living. The silence on the other end was profound. A vacuum. I could almost hear the blood draining from his face. What are you talking about? He finally stammered, the lie pathetic in its transparency. I'm talking about the financial records, the ones from the accounts you managed. I've taken over all household finances, effective immediately. I suggest you make other arrangements. You can't just cut me off. He exploded, the fear raw now. Those are joint accounts. I have rights. I have expenses. Then your attorney can discuss temporary support with Naomi. The credit cards are canceled. You have the one in your wallet. It will be declined after today. Goodbye. Ben. Sloan. Wait. I ended the call. My hands were steady. The recording was a perfect snapshot. His manipulation, his deflection, and finally, his sheer panic when confronted with the financial truth. It was more valuable than gold. The rest of the day was a blur of logistical firewalls. I called the banks, filed fraud alerts, changed passwords on every shared account. I emailed Chloe's preschool director, attaching a copy of the filed petition, formally revoking Ben's pickup authorization. The director, a kind woman named Gloria, was reassuring but firm. We see this more often than you'd think. Ms. Mitchell, the child's safety is our only priority. We'll require a court order for any changes. As evening fell, I was exhausted but wired. I ordered pizza, something I never did on a weeknight, and let Chloe eat it in front of a movie. She was cuddled next to me, cheesy and content. When she looked up, her eyes serious, Daddy called me today. She said around a mouthful of crust. Ice water trickled down my spine. He did? On your tablet? She nodded. He said he was sad in a hotel. He said he misses me lots and lots. He asked if Mommy was still being mean. The pizza turned to lead in my stomach. What did you say, sweetie? I said I miss him too. And Mommy's not mean. Mommy got me ice cream. She stated it as simple fact, then leaned her head against my arm. Is Daddy coming home soon? I stroked her hair, my mind racing. He was using the kid-friendly messaging app. Of course he was. Playing the sad, exiled dad, planting seeds. I don't know, Bunny, but you know you're safe here with me, right? And you can always tell me anything. Okay, she whispered, her attention already drifting back to the cartoon characters on the screen. But I was no longer watching. The battle lines had just extended into a new, more insidious front. He couldn't get to me financially anymore. Not directly, so he was going through our daughter. The audit of the unseen ledgers was underway. Now, I had to prepare for a different kind of warfare point one fought in the quiet, vulnerable heart of a 3-year-old. The email from Mick Spinelli arrived at 6:03 a.m. The subject line was simply update. No pleasantries. The attachment contained a series of grainy but unmistakable photographs. Ben, laughing, his arms slung around a slender blonde woman with the toned, athletic build of a professional yogi. They were entering the glass tower on West 25th. Another shot showed them leaving Elevate Yoga, her mat slung over his shoulder. A third, taken through a telephoto lens at a sidewalk cafe, captured them leaning close, his hand covering hers on the table. Her name was Amber Lewis, according to Spinelli's brief notes, a freelance yoga instructor and wellness influencer with a modest following. The Chelsea apartment was leased under an LLC, but the payments traced back to our joint account. Spinelli also included a snippet of financials. Ben had made several large gifts via Venmo to an account linked to Amber's brother, ostensibly for business development. The business was a failed juice truck. I forwarded everything to Naomi with a trembling hand, then called her. He's funding her life. I said, my voice hollow. He's dissipating marital assets. Naomi corrected, her tone sharp with legal precision. This is good. Sloan, very good. Adultery is one thing. Using joint funds to support a paramour and her family is another. It speaks to financial irresponsibility and bad faith. It's a direct hit to his devoted family man narrative. What about the custody angle? It shows terrible judgment. But family court judges in New York are often reluctant to deny a parent access solely over an affair, unless it's shown to directly harm the child. We need to tie it to the bigger picture. His instability, his prioritizing this relationship over Chloe's financial security, the pattern. We need to get him to talk about it. He'll deny it. Then we make him trip over his own lies. Naomi said, you have the evidence. Use it as a pry bar. Don't confront him with everything at once. Just a piece. See how he reacts. Record everything. An hour later, Ben called. His voice was tight, laced with a new, simmering anger. The canceled credit cards had clearly hit home. What is this, Sloan? You're trying to starve me out? I'm securing marital assets pending a full accounting. Ben, a judge will agree it's prudent, given the circumstances. What circumstances? He shot back. You spying on me now? Is that what this is about? That yoga charge? It's for stress relief. My lawyer says you're on a fishing expedition. A $150 a week yoga habit is an interesting choice for stress relief, considering you've called it a scam for flexible idiots for the last decade. I said calmly, the recorder running, and the apartment. Ben, Chelsea Lux living. 3 bedrooms for your coaching. The silence was different this time. Not shocked, but calculating. He was scrambling. It's a workspace, a place to meet clients. You know how loud the house can be. It's a business expense. A $3.850 a month business expense for a life coaching practice that filed $800 in revenue last year? That's quite an overhead. Who's your primary client? Ben. Amber Lewis? Another dead pause. I heard him swallow. Who? Amber Lewis, the yoga instructor. Your Venmo business development partner. Your frequent dinner companion. I let each title hang in the digital space between us. His breath hitched, then came out in a rush of forced laughter. Jesus, Sloan, are you having me followed? That's low, even for you. Amber is a friend, a business associate. We're exploring a wellness podcast concept. You're so paranoid, so obsessed with control. You're seeing affairs in a business lunch. The photographs suggest a fairly close business partnership. I said, my voice devoid of emotion. Photographs? The word was a squeak. The bravado vanished, replaced by pure panic. You bitch. You unbelievable bitch. You're trying to set me up. I'm not setting up anything. I'm following the money you spent. It led to her. Explain it to the judge. Ben, explain the business dinners at Le Cuckoo, the networking at the Standard, the office that looks like a furnished 1-bedroom. Explain why our daughter's college fund hasn't had a contribution in 2 years. But Amber's brother's juice truck did. He was sputtering now. A jumble of denials and accusations. You can't use that. It's taken out of context. You drove me to this. Your coldness. Your absence. You left me no choice. Bingo. Not a denial of the facts, but a justification. A victim narrative. It was all I needed. You always have a choice. Ben, you chose to lie. You chose to steal from our family. You chose to endanger our daughter. Now, you'll face the consequences of those choices. Through your attorney. I ended the call. I played the recording back. It was perfect. His evasions. His shifting stories, friend. Business partner. His eventual admission by justification. It was the sound of a man's credibility unraveling. But the real blow came that afternoon. Gloria, the preschool director, called, her voice gentle but concerned. Ms. Mitchell, I wanted to give you a heads up. Chloe had a bit of a difficult day. She became very upset during free play, saying she didn't want to go home. When her teacher asked why, she said, Daddy says Mommy is going to send him away forever, and it's my fault for being bad. She also mentioned that Daddy cries on the video calls and says he has no home now. A cold, clean fury washed through me, burning away any residual pity. He wasn't just playing the sad dad. He was weaponizing a 3-year-old's empathy. He was telling her she was the cause, grooming her to feel responsible for his pain, to resent me as the source of it. This was beyond irresponsible. This was emotional manipulation of the most toxic kind. Thank you, Gloria. This is extremely serious. Has she said anything else? She asked if mommies can change their minds and stop being angry. The teacher reassured her that you love her very much and that grown-up problems are not her fault. We'll continue to monitor closely and provide support. I hung up and immediately dialed Naomi, replaying the director's words. He's gaslighting our daughter. I said, my voice tight. He's giving us the final piece. Naomi replied, her own anger audible. This is parental alienation. It's a direct attempt to harm the child's relationship with you, combined with the financial malfeasance and the Thanksgiving incident. It paints a picture of a man who is not only unfit, but actively destructive. We need a child psychologist's evaluation. Now, to document the impact. Set it up. I said, no hesitation. The last of my doubts vanished. This wasn't about winning a divorce anymore. It was about creating a permanent firewall between a poisonous man and my child. The web of deceit was no longer just his. It was the one he was trying to spin around Chloe's understanding of love, safety, and blame, and I was going to burn every single strand of it to the ground. The backlash began not with a roar, but with a poisonous whisper. It started on Instagram. Ben, who hadn't posted anything more personal than a vague workout meme in months, shared a black and white photo of Chloe's tiny hand clutching his finger from 2 years ago. The caption was a masterpiece of manipulative vagueness. The hardest part is the silence, missing my little shadow more than words can say, trying to remember that even in the darkest seasons, love is the anchor. Hashtag dadlife, hashtag family first, hashtag gratitude in the storm. The comments flooded in from his network of fellow ex-athletes, college buddies, and the scattered acquaintances from our old life. Bro, you okay? Hang in there. Man, praying for you and your girl. A few even tagged me. Their messages tinged with confused concern. At Sloan Mitchell Design, everything all right with you guys? Then came the exclusive in the Post's page 6. Not a full article, just a biting, 2-paragraph blind item in the gossip column, which Brooklyn-based female entrepreneur, known for her picture-perfect Instagram feed of minimalist interiors and hashtag girlbosswisdom, has shown her clients a far less polished side at home. Word is, her sudden decision to toss her stay-at-home hubby out just before the holidays has left friends stunned and biz partners whispering. Seems the pressure to keep up appearances can crack even the chicest facade. It was him. It had to be. The language, stay-at-home hubby. Toss out, that was pure Ben, filtered through a tabloid lens. He was weaponizing the very narrative I'd feared. The cold, ambitious woman discarding the devoted dad. He was trying to poison my professional reputation and pressure me into settlement talks. My phone lit up with texts from concerned colleagues and a few nervous clients. My assistant, Marcy, buzzed me, her voice strained. Sloan, the Hanson account, just called. They're pausing to reassess the project timeline given potential distractions. I'm so sorry. A cold, clear focus settled over me. The fear was gone, burned away by a white-hot anger. He wanted a public fight? Fine, he'd get one, but it would be on my terms. I hit the intercom. Marcy, cancel my morning. Get Naomi on the line. Then set up a conference call with Evelyn from PR. Now, 30 minutes later, I was on a secure video call with Naomi and Evelyn Shaw, the crisply efficient head of the small but formidable crisis firm I retained on retainer. The item is classic, Evelyn said, her voice calm and analytical. Enough detail to be credible, enough ambiguity to avoid libel. It's designed to rattle you and sow doubt among your clientele. The Instagram post is setting the emotional stage. He's building the wronged father brand. He's building a case for the court of public opinion. Naomi corrected. To make Sloan look like the villain before we even get to the real court. Then we change the narrative. I said, my voice steady. We don't deny. We don't defend. We pivot. Hard. To Chloe. Evelyn nodded, a glint of approval in her eye. Exactly. We don't mention him. We don't mention the marriage. We exude calm, responsible focus. We make it about protecting what matters most. We crafted a statement together, each word weighed and measured. Within the hour, it was released to a short list of key media contacts and posted on my professional social media accounts, which were notably separate from my sparse, personal ones. Mitchell Design Collective and its founder, Sloan Mitchell, are navigating a private family matter during this challenging time. Sloan's sole focus is on the well-being and safety of her young daughter. She appreciates the support of her friends, colleagues, and clients, and asks for respect and privacy for her family as they move forward. All business operations continue as usual, with a talented team at MDC ensuring seamless service for every client. It was bland, bulletproof, and subtly devastating. It didn't engage with the gossip. It framed me not as a perpetrator of drama, but as a responsible parent prioritizing her child's safety. The words well-being and safety were deliberate, echoing the language of our custody filings. Let people read between the lines. The response was immediate and telling. The Post ran a follow-up, this time with a quote from an anonymous friend. Sloan is one of the most dedicated mothers I know. If she's taking steps to protect her daughter, there's a serious reason. Everyone should just back off and let the family heal. Naomi had mobilized my real friends. The Hanson account called back within 2 hours. Charles himself was on the line, sounding chastened. Sloan, apologies for the earlier call. The team overreacted. Your statement was very dignified. We're fully committed. Let's get those finishes finalized. Round one to me. But Ben had shown his hand. He was getting desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. I just needed to ensure his next mistake was the last one. Mick Spinelli called that afternoon. Got something you need to see, he said, his gravelly voice holding a note of finality. In person, an hour later, I was in a nondescript coffee shop in the West 20s, sitting across from the investigator. He slid a sealed envelope across the table. Inside was a thumb drive, video from the building's security cameras across the street from the Chelsea apartment. Night before Thanksgiving, your husband arrived with the subject, Amber Lewis, at 8:17 p.m. They did not emerge until 9:42 a.m. the following morning. He was wearing the same clothes. He told you he was at a men's retreat upstate. I felt nothing. The betrayal was now a concrete, time-stamped fact. And the audio? Spinelli allowed himself a thin smile. Even better, the subject has a brother, Tyler, small-time hustler, thinks he's a player. I had an associate strike up a conversation in a bar they both frequent, bought him a few drinks, got him talking about his sister's sugar daddy. He slid a transcript across the table, with key sections highlighted. According to Tyler, bragging after 3 whiskeys. Ben's not worried. Says the wife is so obsessed with keeping her perfect life looking perfect. She'll pay him to go away quiet. Says the kid is his golden ticket to a fat monthly check. Once he gets shared custody, he's set. The wife is too busy building her empire to fight a long war. Thinks she'll fold. There was more. Cruder. About my supposed neglect and Ben's plan to milk the cash cow dry. It was vile. It was perfect. The brother's credibility is zero, I said, though my heart was hammering, which is why I took the liberty of having a separate conversation with Ms. Lewis herself. Spinelli said, dropping his final card, presented as a process server with supplemental paperwork. She's not sophisticated. She's scared. She thought Ben was a soon-to-be-divorced millionaire playing house. She's realizing he's a soon-to-be broke leech who's been paying for her apartment with his wife's money. She's facing potential liability for receiving dissipated marital assets. I explained, in simple terms, that her choices were to be named as a correspondent in a messy, public divorce case, likely sued for restitution, or to provide a simple affidavit about the nature and timeline of the relationship, funded by the joint marital account. And I asked, barely breathing, and she's eager to clarify her position. She'll testify, if needed, that the relationship was romantic, not business-related, and that Ben told her he was financially secure and that his wife was checked out and wouldn't care. For a nominal fee to cover her consultation, she'll also hand over some supportive texts. He placed another sheet, a series of text message printouts. One jumped out. Ben, to Amber, from 2 months ago. Don't worry about the rent. Babe, Sloane's so busy chasing her next trophy project. She doesn't even look at the statements. It's our little secret. This is all going to work out. Once I get what's mine from the old ball and chain, we can get a bigger place. I stared at the words. Ball and chain. What's mine? The contempt was breathtaking. It was also a signed confession. I looked at Spinelli. This is enough? It's a canon, he said flatly. The video gives you the affair. The brothers' drunken rant shows premeditation to use the child for money. The girlfriend's testimony and the texts prove the financial deception and his contempt for the marriage, combined with the Thanksgiving incident and the financial records. It paints a picture of a man who is dishonest, manipulative, financially predatory, and a danger to the child's emotional and financial well-being. It's more than enough. I paid Spinelli his hefty invoice, the thumb drive and transcripts weighing heavy in my bag. I walked out into the crisp autumn air, not feeling the cold. The trap was no longer something I was walking into. It was something I had built, piece by meticulous piece, and Ben had stumbled right into the center of it. He'd tried to fight me in the gutter of tabloid gossip, and in doing so, he'd led me straight to the evidence that would bury him in the one place that mattered. A court of law. The perfect trap wasn't just the evidence, it was his own arrogance, his belief that he was smarter, that his narrative would win. He'd forgotten the first rule of any war: know your enemy, and he'd never really known me at all. The email from my cousin Derek's assistant was a model of passive-aggressive corporate formality. Per the request of Director Mitchell, an emergency meeting of the Mitchell Design Collective Board of Directors is convened for 10 a.m. today to discuss matters of urgent concern to the company's governance and public standing. I read it at 7:15 a.m., standing in my kitchen. Chloe was at the table, meticulously sorting blueberries onto her oatmeal. The summons wasn't a surprise. Ben's little media stunt had the subtlety of a sledgehammer. And Derek had been looking for a chink in my armor since the day I took the CEO title from our grandfather's hands instead of his. Naomi called as I was draining my second espresso. "He's moving," she said. "No hello necessary." I saw. The public standing line is a nice touch. He's going to argue that your personal life is creating reputational risk for the company, impacting client confidence. He'll try to paint you as a liability, suggest a temporary leave of absence until the situation is resolved, which would give him de facto control. I finished and weakened my position in the custody case. An unstable CEO can't possibly be a stable mother. Exactly. You need to shift the narrative. Don't let him define the problem as Sloane's messy divorce. Define it as Sloane decisively handling an internal threat to company assets. I glanced at the folder on my counter, prepared by David Chin, the forensic accountant. It contained a damning but clean analysis of Ben's misuse of the company card. I have the pivot. Good. Call me after. And Sloane? Don't get emotional. Be the coldest, most rational person in the room. At 9:55 a.m., I walked into the MDC boardroom on the 12th floor. The view of Lower Manhattan was postcard perfect. The atmosphere inside was glacial. The 5-member board was present. Derek, smug and leaning back in his chair at the head of the table. Sarah Chen, no relation to the accountant. Our lead investor, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, Martin Ford. The retired architect who was my father's friend and a sentimental vote. And 2 independent directors, the Thompsons, a husband and wife law firm who valued stability above all. "Sloane," Derek began, not bothering to stand. "Thank you for joining us on such short notice. We're all, of course, deeply concerned. About the Hansen account?" I asked, taking my seat directly across from him. "It's been resolved. We're finalizing the finishes this week. Their commitment is stronger than ever." Derek's smile tightened. "About the situation, the gay gossip, it's unbecoming. It creates uncertainty. Our clients invest in a brand, an image of stability and discretion. This kind of public melodrama." "What melodrama are you referring to, Derek?" I interrupted, my voice mild. "A 2-paragraph blind item in the Post?" I issued a statement. "The matter is private, and it's being handled." "Handled?" He scoffed. "It's splashed all over social media. Your husband is posting heart-wrenching pleas. It's a circus. and it's damaging the company. I've had calls. From whom? Sarah Chin asked, her tone neutral. Derek waved a hand. Concerned partners. The point is, the CEO's personal life is now a matter of public discussion and, potentially, commercial liability. I move that the board consider placing Sloan on a paid administrative leave until these personal matters are conclusively settled. To protect the company's interests. Martin Ford looked pained. The Thompsons exchanged a glance. A liability. I repeated, opening the folder before me. Interesting framing. Because I was under the impression that a liability was something that created a financial or legal risk to the corporation. I slid copies of David Chen's report across the table to each member. What you have there is a preliminary forensic audit of all company credit cards and expense accounts, specifically those assigned for family and ancillary business use. Derek's smirk faded as he scanned the first page. As you'll see, I continued, my voice flat and clinical. Over the past 22 months, a card issued to Benjamin Carter, M.Y., soon-to-be ex-husband, has been used for over $87,000 in unauthorized personal expenditures. These include luxury dining, hotel stays, high-end retail, and membership fees for a yoga studio and a private social club. None of these are related to Mitchell Design Collective Business. Furthermore, there is evidence of attempted vendor manipulation. I tapped a highlighted line. Emails show Mr. Carter contacted our preferred stone supplier, attempting to redirect a commission for a personal project at a project that, I've since confirmed, does not exist. I let the numbers hang in the air. Sarah Chen's eyebrows were nearly in her hairline. Martin looked sick. This isn't a personal matter. Derek, I said, locking eyes with him. This is an internal case of fraud and misuse of corporate resources. A liability it discovered. A liability I am in the process of terminating through immediate legal separation and the pursuit of full restitution. My personal melodrama, as you call it, is the direct result of me taking decisive action to root out a financial cancer that was attached to this company through my marriage. Derek was scrambling. This is a distraction. You're trying to hide your own failure of oversight. My oversight. I cut in, uncovered the problem. The question for the board is whether you want the CEO who identified and is surgically removing this problem, or whether you'd prefer to install someone. I glanced at Derek, whose primary qualification seems to be a willingness to exploit personal hardship for a power grab, while ignoring an actual $87,000 breach of fiduciary trust. Sarah Chun spoke first. Has this spending been recovered? The cards have been cancelled, civil and, if our lawyers advise, criminal proceedings for embezzlement are being prepared against Mr. Carter. Recovery is a priority. More importantly, the leak has been plugged. She nodded, a brisk, satisfied movement. Then it appears the CEO has handled an internal threat with appropriate speed and discretion. The public melodrama, as you put it, Derek, seems to be the sound of that threat being neutralized. I see no reason for a leave of absence. In fact, I'd question the judgment of any director who would remove a leader during active crisis management. Martin Ford nodded vigorously. Here, your father would be proud. Sloan, facing it head-on. The Thompsons murmured their agreement. The coup was over before it began. Derek's face was a blotchy red. He had nothing. I had receipts. If there's no further urgent concern for the company, I said, gathering my papers. I have a prior commitment. The financial audit will be completed and circulated. Thank you for your time. I walked out, my heels clicking a steady rhythm on the polished concrete floor. One battle won, but the more important one awaited. That afternoon, I sat in a sun-filled, toy-strewn office in the West Village across from Dr. Alana Reed, a child psychologist with a kind face and a no-nonsense manner. Chloe was in the adjacent playroom with a postdoc, being observed, based on my session with Chloe and the reports from her preschool teacher. Dr. Reed said, her notes before her, I'm seeing clear signs of anxiety and confusion. She exhibits what we call parental loyalty conflict. She's verbalized that she believes her father's distress is her fault for being bad. She's also worried that you are angry and that this anger might extend to her. A cold knot tightened in my chest. He told her it was her fault. On a video call, Dr. Reed's expression turned grave. That is deeply concerning. It's a form of emotional manipulation, alienating her from you by making her feel responsible for his emotional state. At her age, children are egocentric. They believe their actions cause everything. What he's doing can be incredibly damaging to her sense of security and self-worth. What can I do? Continue providing a stable, predictable, and loving environment. Reassure her constantly that grown-up problems are not her fault, that you love her unconditionally, and that she is safe. My recommendation, for the purposes of your custody proceedings, will be that Chloe needs a primary, stable home base. That frequent, unstructured contact with a parent who is engaging in this kind of negative communication could exacerbate her anxiety and hinder her emotional development. Supervised, therapeutic visitation would be ideal until Mr. Carter demonstrates an understanding of the harm caused and a commitment to co-parenting without alienation. She slid a draft of her evaluation report toward me. The language was clinical, precise, and devastating. The child is experiencing measurable anxiety, evidence of undue influence, and attempts to undermine the primary attachment figure. Recommendations for a primary custodial environment and therapeutic supervision of contact with a non-custodial parent. It was the other half of the canon, not just a financial predator, but an emotional danger to his own child. I picked up Chloe from the playroom. She was coloring quietly, less exuberant than usual. Did you have fun, Bunny? She nodded, not looking up. The lady asked about Daddy, and if I felt squiggly in my tummy. And do you? Sometimes. She finally looked at me, her blue eyes wide and solemn. When Daddy cries on the tablet, it makes my tummy feel squiggly and sad. I knelt and pulled her into a hug, breathing in her little girl scent. Oh, sweetheart, you know that's not your job, right? Your job is to play and learn and be happy. Daddy's feelings are for Daddy to handle. It's never, ever your fault. You are the best thing in my whole world, and nothing can change that. She buried her face in my neck. I love you, Mommy. I love you more than anything. I whispered, the words of vow. As we left, the two reports, point one financial, one psychological, felt like twin pillars of ironclad truth in my bag. Derek had tried to use Ben's chaos to attack my professional competence and failed. Ben had tried to use Chloe's love to attack my maternal heart. And in doing so, he had given me the very weapon that would ensure I could protect her, and the life I'd built for her. Completely, the battlefield was shifting, and for the first time, I was charging forward on ground entirely of my own choosing. The conference room in the law offices of Hartwell Associates was aggressively neutral. Beige walls, a sleek mahogany table, abstract art that resembled moody bacteria cultures. It smelled of lemony polish and expensive anxiety. This was the arena for the mandatory settlement conference, a last-ditch effort to avoid a public, ugly trial. I sat beside Naomi, my back straight, hands folded on the table. I wore a charcoal gray Armani suit, armor in wool crepe. Across from us, Ben slouched next to his attorney, a harried-looking man named Frank D'Angelo, whose suit jacket strained at the buttons. Ben looked thinner, older. The cocky, golf course tin had faded to a sallow gray. His eyes darted to me, then away, a rabbit sensing a wolf. The mediator, a retired judge named Franklin, entered with a file and a weary air. Good morning. Let's see if we can find a path forward today that serves the best interests of everyone, especially the child. He glanced at the file. Chloe. Naomi gave a curt, professional nod. D'Angelo mumbled an assent. Ben stared at the table. Mr. Carter. Judge Franklin began, turning to Ben. I've read the petitions. Your wife is seeking sole legal and physical custody, with supervised visitation for you, and a property settlement reflecting, among other things, The dissipation of marital assets. That's a significant ask. Can you tell me, in your own words, why you believe a more balanced arrangement is in Chloe's best interest? Ben cleared his throat, leaning forward with a practiced show of earnestness. Your Honor, Judge Franklin, thank you. All of this, it's been a terrible misunderstanding. I love my daughter more than anything in this world. His voice cracked, perfectly timed. That night, Thanksgiving, I'd had too much to drink. I was stressed. I said things I didn't mean. I would never hurt Chloe. She slipped. It was an accident. And Sloane, she just shut down. She's always been like that. When there's a problem, she goes into business mode. She sees people as problems to be solved. She's treating our family, our marriage, like a failed merger. He was good. He was using the cold, corporate bitch narrative, painting himself as the emotional, flawed, but loving parent. D'Angelo gave a supportive nod. And the current separation? Franklin prompted. It's killing me, Ben said, his eyes growing moist. Not seeing my little girl. She's my whole world. I just want to be a father to her. A real father, not some supervised visitor. Sloane has this vision of a perfect life. And now that I don't fit into it, she's trying to erase me from it. She's using her money, her lawyers, to cut me out. It's not fair to me. And it's sure as hell not what's best for Chloe. He sat back, having delivered his soliloquy. The room was silent. Franklin's face was unreadable. He turned to me. Ms. Mitchell, your response. Naomi placed a gentle hand on my arm, a signal to let her lead. I gave a slight shake of my head. This was mine. I looked directly at Ben. My gaze level. You're right about one thing. Ben, I am treating this with the seriousness it deserves, because the problem isn't a failed merger. The problem is that my husband of 6 years systematically lied to me, stole from our family to fund an affair, and then, when drunk and angry, endangered our child and blamed her for her own injury. And when confronted with the consequences, he has chosen to manipulate our daughter's emotions and smear my reputation rather than take a single shred of responsibility. Ben's jaw tightened. That's a lie. I never. Let her finish. Mr. Carter, Franklin said mildly. I opened the binder before me. This isn't about one night. Judge Franklin, it's about a pattern of behavior that makes Benjamin Carter an unfit and unsafe custodial parent. I'd like to enter into the record. First, the preliminary report from Dr. Alana Reed, a court-appointed child psychologist. I slid a copy across the table. D'Angelo snatched it up. Dr. Reed's evaluation. I continued. Finds that Chloe is experiencing significant anxiety and confusion directly linked to Mr. Carter's communications with her. Specifically, he has told her that his distress is her fault at a classic and damaging form of parental alienation. Her recommendation is for a primary, stable home environment and therapeutic supervision of any contact with Mr. Carter to prevent further emotional harm. Ben's face flushed. She's twisting a 3-year-old's words. I was sad. She asked why. I said I missed her. That's it. The preschool director's affidavit. Naomi interjected smoothly, sliding another document forward. Corroborates that Chloe verbalized that Daddy says Mommy is sending him away because I was bad. That's not a child's misinterpretation. That's coaching. Or worse, emotional blackmail. Franklin's lips thinned as he read the psychologist's summary. Second, I said, my voice cold and clear. The financials. I tapped another section of the binder. Forensic accounting shows that over the last 22 months, Mr. Carter diverted over $87,000 of marital funds that could have been used for Chloe's care. Her future to support a secret double life. This includes rent on an apartment for his mistress, luxury dining, and direct cash transfers to her family. Our marital funds, Ben exploded, slapping the table. I had every right. You controlled everything. You made me feel like a beggar in my own home. Did I make you feel like a beggar at Le Cuckoo, Ben? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Or at the Standard Hotel bar. Or when you were paying for Amber Lewis's personal yoga instructor certification. I saw him flinch at the name, because those charges are all there, on our joint credit card, the one you used to buy a necklace for her. The week of Chloe's birthday, D'Angelo was frantically flipping through the financial documents we'd provided in Discovery. He looked pale. "This is character assassination," Ben shouted, leaning forward, his finger jabbing the air toward me. "You're trying to punish me for having a life outside of your control. So I had a friend." "So what?" "A friend you lied about. A friend you funded with family money. A friend you were with the night before Thanksgiving, when you told me you were on a men's retreat." I looked at Judge Franklin. "I have security camera footage, time-stamped, of Mr. Carter entering and leaving that apartment with Ms. Lewis on the night in question. I also have a sworn affidavit from Ms. Lewis detailing the romantic nature of their relationship and confirming that Mr. Carter led her to believe his marriage was effectively over and that he had significant independent means." The room went utterly still. Ben looked like he'd been gut-punched. The color drained from his face, leaving his skin waxy. The emotional, wronged father facade crumbled, revealing the panicked, cornered man beneath. "She's lying," he whispered hoarsely. "She's a gold digger. She's saying whatever Sloane paid her to say." "I also have," Naomi said, as if merely adding a footnote, "a recorded conversation between Mr. Carter and the petitioner from December 2nd. She pressed a button on a small speaker in the center of the table. My voice, calm and cold, filled the room. "How is Elevate Yoga Wellness part of raising our child, Ben, or the monthly $3,850 to Chelsea Lux Living?" A pause, then Ben's voice, blustering, then breaking. You can't just cut me off. Those are joint accounts. I have rights. I have expenses then. The pièce de résistance." His voice rising to a desperate shriek. "You drove me to this. Your coldness. Your absence. You left me no choice." Naomi stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening. Judge Franklin removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked at Ben, then at his lawyer. "Mr. D'Angelo, your client's position. In light of this," D'Angelo looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. He leaned over and muttered fiercely to Ben, who was shaking his head, his eyes wide with a dawning, horrifying comprehension. He was watching his story, the story of the neglected husband, the devoted father burned to ash in front of the one person whose opinion mattered. "Your Honor," D'Angelo said, his voice strained, "my client acknowledges that there have been lapses in judgment, significant ones. He is deeply remorseful for any pain caused. His primary concern remains his relationship with his daughter, a relationship currently characterized by emotional manipulation and financed by misappropriated funds." Franklin said, his tone dry. He looked at me. "Ms. Mitchell, your proposal." Naomi laid it out, her words crisp and final. "Sole legal and physical custody to Sloane Mitchell. Supervised therapeutic visitation for Mr. Carter. Frequency and duration to be determined by Dr. Reed. At his expense. Waiver of all spousal support. Division of marital assets to reflect the dissipation of funds by Mr. Carter. He receives the depreciated value of his vehicle and personal effects, and a one-time payment equivalent to 15% of the non-retirement marital cash assets. After restitution for the misappropriated funds is deducted, he retains no interest in the Mitchell Design Collective or the Brooklyn Brownstone, which was Ms. Mitchell's premarital asset. All future communication regarding Chloe to be through a court-approved parenting app. It was brutal. It was everything." Ben made a choke sound. 15%? That's nothing. You're leaving me with nothing. And I can't even see my own kid without some babysitter? This is insane. She's trying to destroy me. Franklin fixed him with a stern gaze. "Mr. Carter, based on what I've heard today, the destruction appears to be largely self-inflicted. Your choices, financial, personal, and parental, that have brought you to this point. Ms. Mitchell's proposal is severe. but it is a direct reflection of the severity of your actions. If this proceeds to a trial, a judge will see the psychologist's report, the financial evidence, the testimony of Ms. Lewis, and these recordings. Y comment sur you, the outcome will not be more favorable. In fact, you may find yourself facing a restitution order and even more restrictive visitation. He let that hang. Ben looked at his lawyer, who gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of his head. Take the deal. The fight left Ben's body like a deflating balloon. He slumped in his chair, all the bluster and performance gone, leaving only a hollow shell of shame and defeat. I need to think, he mumbled. You have until the end of the day. Franklin said, standing. The agreement is drafted. Sign it, or we proceed to a trial where all of this becomes public record. Think of your daughter, Mr. Carter. What's left of your relationship with her may depend on you accepting the consequences of your behavior with some grace. The mediator left. D'Angelo began whispering urgently to Ben, pointing at clauses in the agreement. Naomi and I gathered our things. As we stood to leave, Ben looked up at me. The hatred in his eyes was pure and undiluted, but beneath it was a deeper, more terrifying emptiness. You think you've won, he rasped. I paused, looking down at him. For the first time, I felt no anger, no fear, only a vast, clean pity. This was never about winning. Ben, it was about survival. Chloe's and mine. You just made it a fight, and you lost. I turned and walked out of the room, Naomi at my side. The door clicked shut behind us, muffling the sound of Frank D'Angelo's pleading and Ben Carter silent. Shattered rage. The war wasn't over, there would be paperwork, logistics, the slow unwinding of a life, but the battle was. The line in the sand had been drawn, crossed, and fortified into an impregnable wall. And on the other side was freedom. The sound of the jackhammer was a symphony of destruction. I stood in the center of my living room, now a skeleton of exposed brick and timber, and watched as the old Italian stone hearth, the one where Chloe had fallen, that was reduced to rubble. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light, piercing the plastic sheeting over the windows. It smelled of drywall, sawdust, and possibility. For weeks after the settlement conference, a strange limbo had settled over my life. Ben, through his shell-shocked lawyer, had signed the papers. The divorce decree was final, a stark PDF document that felt both momentous and anticlimactic. The restraining order was in place. The financial disentanglement was a bureaucratic slog overseen by Naomi and David Chin, a meticulous severing of ties that felt like a medical procedure. Painful, necessary, and ultimately healing. Yet, in the quiet of the brownstone, his ghost lingered, not in a haunting way, but in the negative space he'd occupied, the echo of his criticisms in a room I'd decorated that he'd never liked, the faint, phantom scent of his cologne in a closet I hadn't yet emptied, the unease that crept in when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. That's when I knew the house, my house, needed more than just a legal purge. It needed a spiritual one. It needed to become, unequivocally, mine and Chloe's. So, I'd hired a contractor, not for a gentle refresh, but for a gut renovation. The formal dining room where the Thanksgiving disaster had unfolded was being opened up into a light-filled family space. The study, which had been Ben's domain of sports, memorabilia, and half-empty glasses, was becoming Chloe's art studio, and the hearth at the site of the fracture that was being replaced with a sleek, modern gas fireplace set into a wall of floating shelves, ready to be filled with our books, our photos, our things. Watching the stone crack and crumble, I felt a corresponding fissure in my own carefully constructed armor, the armor of the perfect hostess, the unflappable CEO, the woman who had it all under control. That woman had been a performance, a beautifully curated facade built to hide the cracks in my marriage, the quiet desperation, the fear of failing my father's legacy. Letting the jackhammer do its work felt like permission to finally stop performing. Mommy, it's loud. Chloe yelled from the top of the stairs, her hands clamped over her ears. but her eyes were wide with fascinated glee. I walked over and scooped her up, retreating to the relative quiet of the kitchen, which was untouched for now. It is loud, but it's a good loud. It's the sound of making things new. What color should we paint the new playroom? Not pink, I added quickly, seeing her mouth open. Think big. Think crazy. She scrunched her face in thought. Like rainbow? Maybe one rainbow wall. I conceded, kissing her cheek. The mark from Thanksgiving was long gone. Faded like a bad dream. The anxiety, according to Dr. Reed, was lessening, replaced by a cautious security. We had our rituals now. Friday night pizza and movies. Saturday morning adventures to the botanical garden or the children's museum. Sunday baking disasters that filled the house with the smell of burnt cookies and laughter. They were simple, messy, and entirely ours. My phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. Derek just folded. Called to congratulate you on the decisive resolution of your personal matters and said the board is united behind your leadership. Translation. He saw the Q2 numbers and the Hansen project photos in Architectural Digest. The vulture has found a different carcass to circle. You're secure. A smirk touched my lips. The boardroom coup felt like a lifetime ago. The company had not just survived the Whisper campaign, it had thrived. The dignified, mother-first statement had resonated with more clients than it alienated. The Hansen project was a triumph, a spread of clean lines and warm textures that was pure, uncompromised me. Derek's retreat was inevitable. He was a predator who only attacked perceived weakness. I was no longer weak. Another buzz. This one was an email notification. The subject line made my breath catch. Final disbursement closure. It was from the escrow company handling the divorce settlement. Ben's one-time payment, a fraction of what he'd expected, had been wired. The last financial tether was cut. Attached was a terse, one-line email from Frank D'Angelo. Per the agreement, all personal effects of Mr. Carter have been removed from storage and delivered. Consider this matter concluded. Concluded? I walked to the front window. On the curb sat a single, sad-looking cardboard box. Ben's personal effects. The things he hadn't bothered to claim in person. I felt a pang, not of loss, but of profound waste. All those years, all that energy, reduced to a box waiting for the sanitation truck. I went outside. The autumn air was crisp. I didn't open the box. I didn't need to see the forgotten running shoes, the outdated electronics, the trinkets of a life he'd pretended to have. Instead, I lifted IT. IT was lighter than I expected, and carried it to the large recycling bin at the side of the house. I dropped it in. It landed with a soft thud. I closed the lid. As I turned back, I saw a woman approaching on the sidewalk. She was young, blonde, with the taut, anxious energy of a yoga instructor on too much caffeine. Amber Lewis. She stopped a few feet away, wringing her hands. Sloan? Sloan Mitchell? I stopped, crossing my arms. Ms. Lewis. I just wanted to. She trailed off, her eyes darting to the house, the construction, anywhere but my face. I got the settlement, the money, from the restitution thing. Thank you. I didn't know, about the money being like that. He made it sound like it was his. I studied her. She wasn't evil. She was vain, foolish, and opportunistic, a minor player in my tragedy. I know you didn't, I said, my voice even. The affidavit was helpful. Consider us even. She nodded, a jerky motion. He called me. After. He was so angry. Said you ruined everything. Said he was going to fight for his daughter. That he'd make you pay. A cold sliver of the old fear tried to pierce my calm. I quashed it. The court orders are very clear, and the penalties for violating them are severe. He's talking to himself now. I paused. What did you say to him? She gave a short, humorless laugh. I told him to lose my number, that the wellness part of my life meant cutting out toxic people. She finally met my eyes, hers full of a sheepish shame. I'm sorry. For my part in it, I simply nodded. There was nothing else to say. She gave a little wave and hurried off. her Lululemons a bright flash against the gray pavement. I watched her go, feeling nothing. No hatred, no vindication. She was already part of the past, receding into the city's noise. The next Saturday, Naomi came over, bearing bagels and a determined expression. The brownstone was still a construction zone, but the kitchen was an oasis. Chloe was at a friend's for a play date. Okay, spill, Naomi said, spreading cream cheese with surgical precision. The legal drama is over. The financial drama is over. The house is undergoing dramatic renewal. What's next for Sloan Mitchell? And don't say the fall line for Mitchell Design. I mean for you. I sipped my coffee, considering, for so long, me had been a Venn diagram of obligations. The company, the marriage, the public image, the child. Now, two of those circles were gone, and the third had been forcibly reshaped. I'm taking Chloe to Montauk, I said, for a week. Just us. No emails. No blueprints. We're going to stay at that shabby cottage my dad loved. We're going to eat lobster rolls on the beach, look for seashells, and get sand in places sand should never be. Naomi's eyebrows shot up. A whole week? Unplugged? Who are you, and what have you done with my workaholic friend? She burned out, I said, and it was mostly true. She realized that her most important project isn't a building. It's a childhood, and she's been outsourcing the fun parts. I looked around at the dust-sheeted chaos. All of this, it was necessary. Scorched earth. But you can't build on scorched earth. You have to let it lie fallow for a bit. Plant something new. Naomi reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you. And not just for nuking that waste of space from orbit. For this. She gestured at me. The unclenching. I laughed. A real, free sound that echoed in the empty space. It's a process. It is. And you're doing it. Oh, before I forget. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her bag. Ben's first supervised visit is next Wednesday. It's at one of those depressing family connection centers in Queens. 2 hours, with a social worker present. Dr. Reed will get a report. She handed it to me. You don't have to do anything. I just thought you'd want to know. I took the paper. The date and time were just facts. I felt a flutter, not of fear, but of a deep, protective vigilance. This was the new reality. He was in her life, on the strictest, shortest, most monitored leash the law could provide. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe. It was controlled. It was the compromise that protected my daughter. Thank you, I said, my voice thick for a moment, for everything, for being the sword and the shield. Hey, she said, her own eyes suspiciously bright. That's what Sister from Another Mister / extremely well-paid counsel is for. Now eat your bagel. You've got walls to tear down. The week in Montauk was a baptism of salt air and simplicity. I didn't check my work phone once. Chloe and I built elaborate sandcastles only to let the tide demolish them. We flew a kite that spent more time tangled in dunes than in the air. We ate ice cream for dinner one night because we could. I watched her. Her hair bleached blonder by the sun, her skin freckling, her laughter as constant as the crash of the waves, and I felt a peace so profound it was almost like grief for the years I'd missed while being busy performing a life. On our last night, we sat wrapped in a blanket on the porch of the cottage, watching the stars emerge. Mommy? Chloe asked, her head heavy against my arm. Yes, Bunny? I like it here. It's just us. I like it here too. Is Daddy sad at his new house? I took a slow breath. Dr. Reed had coached me on this. Honest, but age-appropriate, reassuring. Daddy has grown-up feelings that he has to learn to manage. Sweetheart, that's his job, not yours. Your job is to know that you are loved. So much. By me. And that you are safe. Always. She was quiet for a minute. Processing. I love you more than all the seashells on all the beaches. My throat tightened. And I love you more than all the stars in that sky. It was enough. It was everything. Back in the city. Life settled into a new, vibrant rhythm. The brownstone transformation was complete. The new great room was airy and bright, filled with soft, inviting furniture and Chloe's artwork proudly displayed. The art studio was explosion of color and potential. The ghost was exorcised. One Saturday afternoon in early spring, I found myself in the park with Naomi and Chloe. We were on a picnic blanket, the remains of a feast from the gourmet deli scattered around us. Chloe was chasing squirrels with a joyful shriek, her legs stronger, her confidence palpable. Naomi raised her glass of iced tea. To new foundations, I clinked mine against it, to not having to build them on quicksand. We drank, the sun warm on our faces. My phone, face down on the blanket, buzzed. It was a calendar alert. Ben, supervised visit, family center, 2 hours. I glanced at it, then flipped it back over. It was a data point, a logistical note. It held no power over this moment, over the sun, over my daughter's laughter, over the solid, unshakable ground beneath me. I looked at Chloe, now trying to convince a very patient Labrador to play fetch. She was thriving. I looked at Naomi, my friend who had walked through fire with me. I thought of the company, stable and strong under my leadership, no longer a trophy to be polished, but a tool to build a life. The performance was over. The carefully constructed set had been torn down. What remained was raw, real, and beautifully, imperfectly mine. There was no more script, no audience to please. There was only this: the sun, the grass, the laughter, and the profound, hard-won quiet of a piece that was finally, completely, my own. The future was no longer a thing to be defended against, but a blank, beautiful page, and for the first time in a very long time, I couldn't wait to start writing. The air in the Hamptons rental was thick with the scent of salt, sunscreen, and celebration. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Atlantic Ocean churned, a majestic gray-blue under the late summer sky. Laughter and the clink of glasses swirled around me, but my attention was anchored to the small figure darting across the manicured lawn. Chloe, now a sturdy, sun-bleached 5-year-old, was a whir of motion, leading a pack of other children in a chaotic game of tag. Her laughter, loud and unself-conscious, carried on the breeze. She wore a simple blue sundress, already grass-stained at the knees, no longer the wisp of curls who clung to my leg. Here was a girl claiming her space in the world with both hands. She's a force of nature, a warm voice said beside me. I turned to see David Chin. My forensic accountant turned, against all my careful plans, something significantly more. He handed me a fresh glass of sparkling water, his eyes crinkling at the corners. 2 years of quiet dinners, shared concerns over Chloe's math homework, and his steadfast, unflappable presence had slowly dismantled the last of my defenses. He was the antithesis of drama, kind, brilliant in his own field, and utterly secure in himself. He never tried to manage me. Takes after her mother, I said, taking the glass, our fingers brushing, a simple contact that still sent a quiet thrill through me, not the dizzying, unstable passion of my youth, but the deep, steady current of being seen and cherished for exactly who I was. Spreadsheet-loving control freak and all. I still think Mitchell Chen Design Build has a nice ring to it. He teased, referencing the merger our firms had completed 6 months prior. It had been my idea, a strategic expansion that made perfect business sense. The fact that it entwined our professional lives even further was a bonus I'd learned to accept, not fear. Over my dead body, I shot back, smiling. The Mitchell brand has equity, but Chin Financial Oversight can be a very prominent subheader. Our banter was interrupted by Naomi, who swept over in a stunning kaftan, a gin and tonic in hand. Okay, I've schmoozed the last potential client. Your daughter has corrupted my godchildren into